Today we're celebrating the first anniversary of Sonnet's Maker's Box with the June 2025 edition. Packed with inspiration, we're making 6 amazing projects using a bit of everything in the box, plus debut of the digital press papers. We're kicking things off with one of our original laser cut designs, the Honeycomb Bee Frame with Easel DIY kit. Next, we'll take a pair of thrifted candlesticks and 2 wood rounds and transform them into elegant decor risers. Project number 3 brings in another CNC original, our modern art style standing cutting board with kickstand and clip. Then it's on to a classic CNC staple, the large arched frame with kickstand finished in a timeless chinoiserie style. We'll also create with our classic farmhouse style standing cutting board, another one of our 4 unique styles in this line. And last but definitely not least, we'll flip a thrifted wood box into a gorgeous garden-inspired centerpiece. I'm Cindy, my husband is Chris. Welcome to CNC DIY Factory. If we've inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. For Project 1, we are using our original CNC DIY Factory's laser cut design, Honeycomb Bee Frame with Easel DIY kit, which pairs perfectly with an exclusive rice paper design by the painted photographer called Be Kind. I'm using the Liquid Sunshine by DIY from the Maker's Box, and I'm mixing in a little bit of the white swan to lighten the color up. Then I'm going to apply 1 good coat of paint to the frame, the easel pieces, and the back of the frame. For the 7 honeycomb pieces and the bee, I will use the Liquid Sunshine without any of the white swan added. I want these to stand out against the lighter yellow of the frame. I used Little Black Dress by DIY for the black on the bee, and I will use Tarnished Pearl for the wings of the bee. I did not get this on camera, but I did use a detail brush and some of the Little Black Dress watered down with some Tarnished Pearl and water to create the veins on the wings. Once all of these pieces are dry, I will go ahead and seal them all in with Wise Owl varnish in matte finish. DIY paint needs to be sealed or it can be reactivated with water, and I find it's sometimes easier to seal them before assembly. This exclusive rice paper by the painted photographer is so vibrant, and I love that she always has a 3-up design in the Maker's Box. I am using the larger piece because it will fit perfectly in this frame. I have already painted the front of the back piece with white swan, and this is so that the colors in the paper will show true and the wood tones of the back piece will not show through the paper. I'm using Fusion decoupage and transfer gel to decoupage this rice paper. I found that the thickness of this medium works perfectly for the thicker papers such as rice paper. I still start with a starter strip, but with this gel, I do not have to mist the rice paper. I simply use a balled up piece of plastic wrap to smooth out the rice paper, and once I have the paper adhered, I will go over the entire piece with a coat of decoupage and transfer gel to seal it all in. And when it is dry, I will sand off the excess paper, leaving a clean, crisp edge. This frame is so easy to assemble. Once you have your art piece completed on the back, you simply add some glue to the underside of the honeycomb frame and line it up. I'm using Stick Fast CA glue in the thick formula. Then I'll adhere the bee where I want it along with the 7 honeycomb pieces around the frame. The two easel pieces simply slide together, and there you have it. A sweet frame with an equally sweet picture to complement each other. Project 2 is a Thrifted Treasure. I am using 2 pillar candlestick holders that I thrifted, along with 2 wood round discs from my stash. I'll use the E6000 to adhere the wood rounds to the tops of both of these candlesticks, and I'll set them aside overnight to dry. I want these to have a crackle finish, so I'm using the Sweet Pickins milk paint in navy blues from the Maker's Box. The milk paint comes in a powder form, and it is mixed with equal parts water to paint. The milk paint needs to be mixed thoroughly, and I like to use a milk frother to mix my paint, but a small whisk or a spoon or even a craft stick would work just as well. Once it's mixed up, I'll set it aside for about 10 minutes to thicken up. While I wait for the milk paint to thicken, I am going to stain the bottom and sides of the wood rounds. I'm using Minwax water-based stain in Legacy Brown, and this stain is safe to use indoors. It does not have any odor, and it is not combustible like the oil-based stains are. You can get this at Lowe's and Menards. Now that the milk paint is thickened up to about a melted milkshake consistency, I'll use an old chip brush to apply the paint. I'll apply 2 coats of this milk paint, and I'll use my heat gun to dry each of the coats. I don't want to heat the paint up too much because I run the risk of the paint chipping off more than I want it to. I absolutely love the way this paint crackles and crazes. Now let's work on the tops. I'm applying 1 coat of white swan to the tops of the wood rounds. I'm going to be using the napkin that came in the Maker's Box for these risers. Sonnet has decided that she will be including a napkin in every box from now on, and I think this napkin is just so pretty. It has just a hint of the blue in the butterfly and coordinates so well with the milk paint. I don't want the exact same design on both risers, so once I have selected which part of the napkin will go on each riser, I cut out a section of the napkin and I have some left over to use on something else later. I usually use the iron-on method when I'm working with napkins, but today I'm going to be using the DIY liquid patina. I apply an even amount of liquid patina to the surface, and then using my fingers and a balled up piece of plastic wrap, I carefully smooth out the napkin. And once this is dry, I will use my finger sander to sand off the excess napkin, leaving a clean, crisp edge. I feel these need a little something, so I'm taking the Fusion Mineral paint in Tuscan Orange and an old stencil brush, and I'm dry brushing a little bit of the orange paint around the edge of the wood rounds. This is such a small detail, but I think it makes such a big difference, and it takes us up a notch. What are your thoughts on this? Now, the napkin is not sealed and it's still very delicate, so I am taking my Wise Owl varnish in matte finish, and with a very light hand, I am applying the sealer to the top. Once the varnish has dried, I'm going over that with the DIY clear wax and then wiping off the excess. I want the tops to have a bit of age, so I will use my Howard's Chalk Teak Wax in dark and apply that over the clear wax, and then I'll wipe off the excess to get the look that I want. It's very subtle, but can you see the difference in the two? The milk paint needs to be sealed as well, and you can use any type of sealer you want. I am using the DIY clear wax to seal these, and then I'm going to wipe off the excess. I want the crazing and crackle to really show up on this dark blue, so I'm going to use the DIY white wax over the clear wax, not only to bring out the crackly goodness, but also tone down the blue just a bit. Look at the difference that makes. Oh, I am in love. Wow, talk about show-stopping. These colors work so well together, and that is one of the beautiful aspects of the Curated Maker's Box. Project 3, we are using another one of our CNC original laser designs from the standing cutting board with kickstand and clip lineup. This one is the modern arch style, and I'm pairing it with the exclusive Roycycled decoupage paper crockery masterboard. I love this paper. I have some milk paint left over, so I'm painting the back of the cutting board along with the kickstand assembly with the milk paint. This DIY kit is cut from 1/4 inch MDF board, and all of the DIY kits shown today can be found on our website at cncdiyfactory.com. For the front of the board, I am painting it with one coat of the White Swan by DIY Paint. As soon as I saw this paper, I knew I wanted to use this big crock on this cutting board. I'll use my water pen to create a water line around the image, and then I'll tear it out along that line. Once I have the image lined up where I want it, I will use my DIY liquid patina and lay down an even layer and as a starter strip on the cutting board. Then I'll spritz my paper with water and smooth down the paper. Unfortunately, this is where it all went off kilter. I accidentally moved my paper but did not realize how much I moved it until after I had it completely down. And here is where I realized it was way off. So I just carefully lifted the decoupage paper up and repositioned it. I love that Roycycled paper is tough enough to handle moving it around a bit when I make a mistake. There, now it's all centered and smoothed back out, and whoo, that was a close one. Catastrophe avoided, it is dry, and I am sanding off the excess paper. The milk paint needs to be sealed, but I want to add the kickstand base plate to the cutting board before I seal it to ensure a good bond. I'm using Type Bond Quick and Thick and a little bit of the Stick Fast CA glue in the thick formula. Each board has a scored rectangle on the back indicating where the base plate should be adhered. To seal the milk paint, I am using the Sweet Pickins Oil Wax in Dark. I'm applying an even layer, then I'm waiting for about 5 to 10 minutes for it to soak into the paint before I'm wiping off the excess. Once I have all the excess oil wax removed, I will finish attaching the kickstand assembly to the back of the cutting board. Each kit comes with detailed instructions on how to assemble the kickstand. Each standing cutting board kit also comes with a clip to attach to the front of the cutting board so you can display photos, recipes, greenery, or other ephemera. And one final step is to apply some DIY clear wax to seal the front. What a unique addition to any farmhouse style or vintage decor. Let me know what your thoughts are on this piece. Project 4, we are using our classic large arch frame and kickstand DIY kit, and we're pairing it up with the Willow Blues rice paper by the Painted Photographer. This kit comes with 3 layers to the frame, and the first 2 layers are the arches, and the third layer is the backer. I'm placing the rice paper on the backer and lining up where it will show through the first arch. Then I'm drawing around the paper so I know exactly where to apply my white paint on the backer. Now this does 2 things for me. First, it helps me to make sure I know exactly where I want the paper to be adhered to the backer. And second, I don't have to use as much white paint on the areas that will be covered up. Once I have the white on the front of the backer, I am going to paint the back of the backer along with the kickstand pieces in the DIY paint Blue Iris from the Maker's Box. This color matches the chinoiserie vase in the rice paper perfectly. I have found that the Fusion Decoupage and Transfer Gel is a perfect medium to use when decoupaging rice paper. Since it is a gel, it is a thicker consistency than the DIY liquid patina that I normally use, and I don't feel it is necessary to mist my rice paper before laying it into the gel and smoothing it down. I just use my fingers and a balled up piece of plastic wrap to smooth it out. And once I have the rice paper down, I go over the top with another coat of the decoupage and transfer gel to completely seal the paper. For the first arch that will be next to the image, I want to accentuate the yellow in the background of the paper. So I am using the Liquid Sunshine from DIY that was in the Maker's Box, and I'm painting around the opening. Again, I am only painting the area that will be seen once I add the third layer to the frame. Once the paint has dried, I will adhere the first arch to the back of the frame. I'm using Type Bond Quick and Thick along with Stick Fast CA glue in the thick formula, and I'm clamping the 2 pieces together and setting them off to the side to dry. For the second arch, which will be the front of the frame, I am applying 1 coat of White Swan by DIY Paint. When I saw this rice paper, I immediately thought of the European style of decorating, and I wanted to bring more of that to this frame. So I found a stencil in my stash from Essential Stencils called Decorative Tiles, and I'm using the same Blue Iris paint to stencil on a pattern around this second arch. I have found that it is sometimes easier to seal the paint before assembling the pieces. So I'm using the Wise Owl varnish in matte finish, and I'm sealing both of the arch pieces along with the back of the frame and the kickstand pieces. After all of the pieces have had time to dry, I will start assembling the kickstand. I'm using the Titebond Quick and Thick along with the Stick-Fast CA glue in the thick formula and applying these to the base plate for the kickstand. There's a rectangle scored into the back of each frame for ease of placement. The kickstand assembly instructions are included with each kit, and it has detailed instructions. The colors in this project are not something that I would normally gravitate to when decorating or creating, and that is one of the wonderful aspects to the Maker's Box. It takes me out of my comfort zone and makes me a more creative creator. I would love to know what your thoughts are on this European-style chinoiserie piece. Project 5 brings us to the new edition of the Maker's Box, the digital press. Sonnet has created 5 images to coordinate with the other 4 papers in each month's box. I chose the image with the 4 crocs, and I am using it on another one of our CNC original design DIY kits from the standing cutting board with kickstand and clip line. This is the classic farmhouse style. I have applied 1 coat of the weathered wood by DIY paint to the back of the cutting board and the kickstand pieces, and 1 coat of the white swan by DIY to the front of the cutting board. As you can see, the paper is not long enough to cover the entire cutting board, but I'll show you how I managed this later. I printed this on rice paper, so I'm going to use the Fusion decoupage and transfer gel to adhere the paper to the cutting board. A little shameless plug, all of the DIY kits shown in this video can be found on our website at cncdiyfactory.com, and I'll have them linked in the description box below. I'm using the water method to tear the extra rice paper from around the top of the cutting board, and then I'm placing one of the pieces over the area at the top and adhering it to the board. Now you can see where they meet, but I think this adds a little rusticness to the board. Once everything has dried, I will use my finger sander and sand off the excess paper. You may have noticed at the bottom of the rice paper the ink is a bit faded. I don't have a fancy printer, just an old inkjet, and for some reason the ink did not fully transfer at the bottom. But no worries, I will show you how I fixed that. You can see that the ink looks a little bit pink here. I'm going to use the Tim Holtz Distress ink in tea dye and a makeup applicator, and I'm going to apply some ink onto the paper all around the edges and blend it in. The paper is not sealed yet, so it takes the ink very nicely. And there you have it, problem solved. Using the Wise Owl varnish in matte finish, I'll seal the weathered wood DIY paint on the back of the board as well as the kickstand pieces. This Wise Owl varnish dries very quickly, and once that is dry, I will assemble the kickstand pieces using the Titebond Quick and Thick and Stick-Fast CA glue in the thick formula. Now I do not trust the ink from my printer to not run with a brush-on sealer, so I took this to our shop and sprayed it with 2 coats of Rust-Oleum Clear Finish in matte to seal the paper. All that is left to do is to add the clip that comes with each of the standing cutting board DIY kits. There are 5 digital press papers that now come with each month's Maker's Box. If you received the digital press papers, I would love to know which one is your favorite. Project 6, our last project today, is another Thrifted Treasure. I found this wood box at Goodwill and I want to create a garden-inspired centerpiece. I'm starting by painting the bottom of the box in the Fusion Mineral Paint Midnight Blue that came in this month's Maker's Box. I am using the second paper from Roycycled Treasures called Botanical Ephemera, and I have already torn out the pieces that I want to use on the sides of this box. The paper is long enough that it covers one side and wraps around one end, so I only need 2 pieces of the decoupage paper, and the rest I will save for other projects. The box is already white, so I don't have to paint it before applying the decoupage paper. I'm using the DIY liquid patina to apply the paper to the box. I'll work in sections and lay down an even layer of the liquid patina, then spritz my paper and smooth it down with my paintbrush. This paper goes on so easily, I almost thought there was a catch to it. I'll continue applying the paper in sections until I get all the way around the entire box. Once all of the paper is adhered to the box and dry, I will use my finger sander and sand around all of the edges to remove the excess paper. In hindsight, looking at this while I'm editing, I could have added some raised stencils to the sides. I might have to keep that in mind for the next time. I'm adding 2 coats of the midnight blue to the rim of the box. I feel this brings a cohesive look and it breaks up the white a bit. To bring a new level to the box, so to speak, I am adding some feet. I'm using these little snowman figures from Hobby Lobby that I cut off the top hat, and I'm painting them with the midnight blue. After the feet were dry, I took this out to the shop and using wood glue and a brad nailer, I secured the feet to the bottom of the box. I also decided I wanted handles on this to bring another level to the centerpiece and a bit of functionality as well. So I drilled some holes in the ends of the box for the bolts to hold the handles. The inside paint job is a bit rough and I didn't want to paint it, so I decided to use the Howard's Chalk Teak Wax in dark to grunge it up so it actually fit with the aesthetic of the centerpiece as well as add a layer of protection. Well, it seems I always save my favorite for last. I don't plan it that way, it just happens. This is the perfect size for an island in the kitchen or a dining room table, and it turned out beautifully all the way around it. Now let's take a look at all 6 of the projects in today's video, created using all of the elements in the June 2025 Sonnet's Curated Makers Box. If you're not subscribed to the Makers Box, you need to get on the wait list. I have an affiliate link to her box in the description box below so you can get your very own. And please, if you post your creations online, tag me. I would love to see what you create and be inspired by you. And again, all of the DIY kits in today's video can be found on our website at cncdiyfactory.com. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, keep practicing random acts of crafting. Bye for now.